The CEO demanded to see the real architect behind the project, doubting everyone who claimed the title. The room was tense. Silence filled the air. Then, unexpectedly, the cleaning lady slowly stepped forward, her eyes calm but full of determination. No one could have imagined what would happen next when she extended her hand. That simple gesture revealed a truth so powerful, so shocking, that it changed everything the CEO thought he knew. Who was she really? What secret did her hand hold? The CEO's world would never be the same again. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, because when you stop doing this, YouTube understands that you don't like this content and stops recommending good stories like this. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. In the opulent, almost sterile silence of the 42nd floor, Robert Sterling, CEO of Sterling Innovations, paced with the barely contained fury of a man accustomed to perpetual success, now confronted by an 18-month-long nightmare. The panoramic windows offered a breathtaking, yet currently ignored, vista of Chicago's sprawling urban tapestry, a testament to the very ambition that now felt like a lead weight dragging him down. For over a year and a half, the Phoenix Tower project, envisioned as a beacon of architectural revolution, a gravity-defying marvel, had been a catastrophic failure. Millions had been poured into a void, prototypes had buckled under simulated stress, and the initial excitement had curdled into a bitter taste of defeat. His top brass, a collection of the finest minds money could buy, architects with portfolios boasting iconic structures, engineers who had tamed the wildest forces of physics, sat before him, their faces a mixture of strained politeness and barely disguised exasperation. They had offered explanations, excuses, complex algorithms and revised blueprints, but never a solution. Robert slammed a fist on the gleaming mahogany table, the sound echoing through the tension-filled room. His voice, usually modulated and calm, snapped with the force of a whip. 18 months. 18 months of wasted resources, shattered deadlines, and an embarrassment that stains this company's legacy. This is not just a building, it's a testament to our failure. Bring me the true architect. The demand hung in the air, a desperate plea for a miracle, for someone, anyone, to break the relentless cycle of ineptitude. Just as the silence threatened to consume them all, a quiet, yet remarkably firm voice sliced through the stagnant air from the very back of the room, an unexpected ripple in the carefully controlled environment. The collective gaze of the room, accustomed to deferential nods and hushed tones from its lower ranks, swiveled in unison. Luciana, a woman of 42, her rich dark skin a stark contrast to the pale, anxious faces surrounding her, slowly, deliberately raised her arm. Her kinky hair, pulled back efficiently by a simple gray band, framed a face etched with the quiet dignity of someone who had seen much and said little. She stood there, an anomaly in her light blue shirt, orange apron, and yellow cleaning gloves, a silent yet suddenly undeniable presence amidst the tailored suits and designer dresses. Her uniform, usually a cloak of invisibility, now seemed to highlight her unexpected assertion. There was no hesitation in her posture, no nervous flutter in her gaze. She didn't shrink under the 100 pairs of surprised eyes now fixated on her. Instead, her eyes, dark and unwavering, met Robert Sterling's own bewildered stare with an almost unsettling calm. The architects, the engineers, the financial analysts, they all looked at her, then at each other, a silent question passing between them. Who is this woman? And what could she possibly have to say? The air crackled with a potent mix of disbelief and a flicker of nascent curiosity, an unexpected turn in a meeting that had, until now, followed a predictable path of escalating frustration. Instead of averting her gaze or lowering her arm, Luciana, with a fluid, confident motion that belied her seemingly unassuming role, extended her hand, and pointed directly at the towering, intricate simulation of the Phoenix Tower displayed prominently on the main screen. The virtual edifice, an elegant cascade of glass and steel, seemed to shimmer in the digital light, a frozen ideal that had stubbornly refused to materialize in the real world. Her voice, clear and resonant, filled the sudden void of silence, cutting through the thick atmosphere of corporate despair. It wasn't a whisper of an idea or a hesitant suggestion. It was a statement of profound, almost poetic conviction. "That building," she began, her words deliberate, each one landing with surprising weight. "It's trying to dance, but you are forcing it to stand still." The metaphor hung in the air, utterly foreign yet strangely compelling in the analytical, data-driven environment. The engineers, who had meticulously calculated every stress point, every wind load, every material density, exchanged glances. The architects, who had painstakingly designed every curve and angle, frowned in puzzled contemplation. Her words weren't technical, weren't jargon-laden, yet they resonated with an underlying truth that the conventional approaches had clearly missed. It was a complete paradigm shift, a reframing of the problem from a perspective none of them had ever considered, challenging their deeply ingrained methodologies with a simple yet profound observation. The room plunged into an absolute, deafening silence. It wasn't merely the quiet pause before the next comment, it was a cessation of breath, a collective holding of thought. Every single person in that high-powered chamber, from the highest-ranking executives to the most junior assistants, felt the impact of Luciana's words, not just what she said, but who had said them. For the first time since she had started working there, diligently cleaning their offices, emptying their wastebaskets, and silently moving through their important meetings, Luciana was truly seen. Not as the background presence, the almost invisible part of the office machinery, but as an individual, a voice, a mind. Her uniform, usually a symbol of her role as a service provider, now seemed to transform into a banner of an unexpected kind of authority, a quiet defiance of the established order. The very air in the room, previously thick with the weight of corporate anxiety and intellectual struggle, now vibrated with a sudden, astonishing revelation. The person who had always been there, always within their peripheral vision, yet never truly acknowledged, had finally stepped into the light, demanding attention not through status or power, but through a startling, insightful truth. The silence in the room, once charged with surprise, now shifted, becoming pregnant with an unspoken question. How did she know? Luciana, unfazed by the intense scrutiny, calmly began to explain, her voice devoid of defensiveness or theatrics. "I clean this room every night for months now," she stated, her gaze sweeping over the polished surfaces and state-of-the-art equipment that surrounded them. Her daily routine, a series of mundane, repetitive tasks, was suddenly recontextualized. While others slept, while the city below shimmered with its nocturnal energy, Luciana was here, meticulously wiping down the very screens that had displayed their failures, dusting the tables where their frustrated discussions had unfolded. It wasn't just about the physical act of cleaning, it was about the silent, uninterrupted immersion in their world. She hadn't just been present, she had been a diligent observer, a silent witness to their ongoing struggle. "As I mopped the floors and dusted the monitors," she continued, her voice gaining a quiet intensity, "I also watched. I saw the graphs, the calculations, the repeated frustrations, and the cycle of failures. She had seen the discarded printouts, the red-penciled revisions, the desperate attempts to force a solution from flawed premises. Every discarded napkin with a scribbled equation, every frustrated sigh, every late-night breakdown of a simulated structure had been absorbed, not just by her ears, but by her keen, intuitive mind. It was this prolonged, unacknowledged observation that had sparked something within her, an innate understanding that transcended formal training. Driven by this burgeoning insight, she had begun to make her own sketches, secret designs born of a different kind of architectural sensibility. These nascent ideas, too unconventional for a formal sketchbook, found their home in a worn, unassuming notebook, tucked away discreetly among her cleaning supplies, a hidden world of creation amidst the mundane tools of her trade. A palpable shift occurred in the room, as Luciana, with a gesture as unassuming as her presence, produced the aforementioned notebook. It was a humble, spiral-bound thing, its cover somewhat stained, completely out of place amidst the sleek digital presentations. As she opened it, revealing page after page of intricate, almost organic drawings, a ripple of astonishment spread through the room. These weren't the rigid, mathematically precise blueprints they were accustomed to. These were buildings that seemed to breathe, structures designed to yield to the wind like trees without breaking. They depicted a profound understanding of flexibility, of a symbiotic relationship between architecture and natural forces that transcended conventional engineering. Each line, each curve, spoke of a deep intuitive grasp of resilience, of a design philosophy that embraced movement rather than resisted it. Margaret Chen, the chief architect, a woman known for her sharp intellect and even sharper skepticism, found herself drawn forward by an irresistible curiosity. She took the notebook, her fingers tracing the delicate yet powerful lines. Her initial expression of polite bemusement quickly transformed into one of genuine awe. There was a raw, undeniable talent on display, a sensitivity to form and function that was both startling and profoundly beautiful. The designs weren't merely aesthetically pleasing. They offered radical, yet elegantly simple solutions to the very structural challenges that had plagued their most seasoned experts. It was a moment of profound, humbling realization for Margaret, a recognition that true genius could emerge from the most unexpected of places, unburdened by academic dogma. Luciana wasn't done. Her earlier statement about the building trying to dance now gained a deeper, more unsettling dimension. She gestured towards the large, comprehensive structural diagram of the Phoenix Tower displayed on the screen, her finger hovering over its subterranean levels. "And there's something else," she stated, her voice lowering slightly, a hint of unease entering her otherwise calm demeanor. "Something wrong with the very base of the building. There's a void." Her words cut through the intellectual admiration sparked by her drawings, introducing a new, more visceral element of concern. This wasn't about design aesthetics or engineering principles. It was about something fundamentally unsettling, a foundational flaw. She then revealed another layer of her silent observations, something that went beyond the visual and into the auditory. "I hear strange sounds coming from the sub-basement," she confessed, her voice almost a whisper, yet it carried an unnerving clarity through the hushed room. Echoes, groans, sometimes a kind of deep, internal creaking. These weren't the typical sounds of a building settling or machinery operating. They were irregular, disquieting, suggesting something amiss deep within the structure's core. It was a detail so specific, so unexpected, that it sent a shiver through some of the assembled experts, challenging their purely technical understanding with an almost primal intuition. It was, she implied, something no one wants to confront, a truth hidden beneath layers of concrete and steel, perhaps even beneath layers of denial. The finality of Luciana's words hung in the charged atmosphere, a potent blend of revelation and foreboding. Her soft, almost sorrowful whisper resonated with an eerie power, painting a vivid, almost anthropomorphic picture of the colossal structure they were trying to build. "It's like the building is scared," she murmured, her gaze once again sweeping across the majestic digital rendering of the Phoenix Tower. This wasn't a technical diagnosis, not a structural calculation, but a profoundly empathetic interpretation of the building's inherent flaws, transforming a collection of materials into something almost sentient. The metaphor was chilling, hinting at an underlying instability that went beyond blueprints and algorithms. The room, which had been buzzing with a mixture of disbelief and burgeoning respect, now settled into a deeper, more unsettling silence. It was a silence filled not just with Luciana's revelation, but with the sudden, uncomfortable weight of unspoken anxieties, of problems perhaps instinctively felt, but never articulated. Everyone present, from Robert Sterling to the most junior architect, felt the uncanny resonance of her words, a chilling echo of their own unacknowledged fears regarding the cursed project. For the first time, the true, perhaps even sentient nature of the obstacles they faced seemed to materialize before them, seen through the unique, insightful lens of the woman who had watched in silence. The weight of Luciana's revelation, particularly her eerie claim about the building being scared due to a hidden void and strange sounds, compelled Robert Sterling to action. Despite the incredulity that still lingered in the air, the sheer conviction in her voice, coupled with the uncanny accuracy of her earlier observations and the revolutionary sketches she'd presented, couldn't be ignored. He issued immediate orders to bring in the Geological Survey Team, an independent group of experts known for their precision and state-of-the-art ground-penetrating radar. The tension was palpable as the team set up their equipment in the designated areas around the Phoenix Tower's proposed base. Hours passed, marked by the low hum of machinery and the hushed consultations of the geologists. The entire executive team, including Margaret Chen, remained on edge, a collective breath held in anticipation. Then came the moment of truth. The lead geologist, Dr. Aris Thorne, a man whose face rarely betrayed emotion, slowly turned from his console, a look of profound astonishment etched onto his features. "Mr. Sterling," he began, his voice laced with an almost disbelieving tone, "our scans indicate a significant subterranean anomaly. It appears there is indeed an unregistered underground chamber beneath the Phoenix Tower, just as Ms. Luciana described." A collective gasp rippled through the room. The confirmation was shocking, yet undeniable. It wasn't just a void. It was a structure, an unseen entity influencing the very foundations of their multi-million-dollar project. Luciana, standing quietly at the back, offered no triumphant smirk, only a quiet, knowing nod. Her intuition, dismissed by many as a cleaner's fanciful notion, had proven more accurate than their most sophisticated technology, forcing a humbling reassessment of their entire approach. The implications were staggering, not just for the Phoenix Tower, but for the very perception of expertise and insight within the company. With the chamber confirmed, the next logical, albeit daunting step was to gain entry. An emergency excavation team was rapidly deployed, working tirelessly through the night under floodlights, carefully breaching the earth to expose the hidden structure. The entrance, when finally revealed, was discreetly concealed, suggesting an intentional secrecy rather than a mere oversight. What they found inside was nothing short of astonishing. It was an ancient shelter, meticulously preserved, dating back to the 1950s, a forgotten relic beneath the bustling heart of modern Chicago. The air within was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of aged paper and dormant concrete. But it was the contents that truly captivated everyone. The shelter wasn't a mere storage space, it was a treasure trove of architectural thought. Lining the walls were dozens of architectural drawings, hand-drawn and meticulously detailed, filling large, dusty blueprints that unfurled to reveal incredible designs. To the utter amazement of Margaret Chen and her team, these drawings shared the exact same core concept as Luciana's sketches. They depicted structures that moved, that adapted, that responded organically to environmental forces. Buildings designed with hinged sections, flexible joints and dynamic skins, all engineered to sway with the wind, absorb seismic shifts, and even change shape with temperature fluctuations, much like a living organism. It was as if they had stumbled upon the long-lost blueprints for a future that had been conceived decades ago, a future that mirrored Luciana's radical yet intuitive vision. The sheer synchronicity was uncanny, almost unbelievable, suggesting a deeper, timeless understanding of architectural principles that had been forgotten or ignored by the mainstream for decades. The discovery of the 1950s shelter and its visionary blueprints, eerily mirroring Luciana's own designs, created a profound sense of cognitive dissonance within Robert Sterling. He walked through the dusty chamber, tracing the lines of a drawing depicting a skyscraper that appeared to be perpetually in motion, its upper floors designed to gently undulate with high winds, its base anchored yet flexible. His mind reeled, trying to reconcile the meticulously educated, highly specialized professionals he employed with the unassuming woman who cleaned their offices. The sheer irony was biting. He had invested fortunes in architectural degrees from the most prestigious universities, in cutting-edge simulation software, in relentless research and development, all designed to push the boundaries of modern construction. Yet the answer, or at least a powerful precursor to it, had come from someone who held a mop and a bucket, someone he and everyone else had literally looked past every single day. The question echoed in his mind, sharp and insistent, demanding an answer that defied conventional logic. How could an invisible woman, with rubber gloves and a cleaning rag in her hands, have seen what his most experienced engineers could not? It wasn't merely a matter of oversight. It was a fundamental blind spot, a failure to perceive insight when it wasn't presented in the expected package, through the conventional channels. The realization was humbling, almost humiliating, yet it also sparked a flicker of genuine intellectual excitement within him. This wasn't just about fixing the Phoenix Tower. It was about fundamentally re-evaluating where true innovation and understanding actually resided, challenging his ingrained notions of expertise and hierarchy. The weight of this question, heavy with implications for his entire corporate philosophy, settled upon Robert Sterling like a physical burden. It wasn't just a rhetorical inquiry, it was a profound challenge to his leadership, to his very understanding of how knowledge and insight are acquired and recognized. The stark contrast between Luciana's humble occupation and her profound, almost prophetic, architectural vision forced him to confront the limitations of a system that valued credentials over raw intuition, formal training over lived observation. He had inadvertently created an environment where the most valuable insights could be rendered invisible, simply because they didn't come from the right source. The discovery of the 1950s designs only amplified this unsettling truth, suggesting that brilliant ideas could be lost not just to time, but to a collective inability to recognize and nurture them outside of established norms. The image of Luciana, calmly pointing at the screen, her cleaning gloves still on, while delivering a diagnosis that baffled his top minds, was seared into his memory. It was a stark, undeniable testament to the fact that true understanding often transcends titles, pay grades, and even formal education. He was faced with the undeniable reality that he and his entire highly paid team had been outmaneuvered, outthought, and outseen by someone they had deemed inconsequential. The very foundations of his perception of success and expertise were crumbling, much like the initial simulations of the Phoenix Tower, forcing a radical, uncomfortable, yet undeniably necessary re-evaluation of everything he thought he knew about innovation and leadership. With the monumental discovery of the forgotten 1950s shelter and its prescient designs, a new wave of pressure mounted on Sterling innovations. The investors, initially intrigued, now bordered on outright rebellion. their patience worn thin by the 18 months of setbacks and the sudden, almost fantastical turn of events. Whispers of withdrawing their capital, of abandoning the Phoenix Tower project entirely, grew louder, threatening to unravel Robert Sterling's empire. The stakes had never been higher. It was in this crucible of doubt and financial peril that Luciana stepped forward again, her proposal as audacious as her earlier revelation. "Give me a condemned warehouse," she stated, her voice calm but resolute, "and I will show you how the building wants to dance." Her idea was simple in its premise, yet revolutionary in its application. To take a derelict structure, slated for demolition, and breathe new life into it, using the very principles of structural dance. The concept of flexible, adaptive architecture gleaned from her own intuitive understanding and the newly discovered blueprints. It was a bold gamble, an unconventional approach that flew in the face of traditional engineering. But with all other options exhausted and the company's future hanging by a thread, Robert Sterling, against his ingrained corporate instincts, agreed. There was little to lose, and perhaps everything to gain. The gauntlet had been thrown, and Luciana was ready to prove her vision. Time was a luxury they didn't have. With the investors' ultimatum looming, Luciana was thrust into a leadership role, an improbable architect coordinating a bewildered team of engineers and construction workers. Her uniform now included a hard hat, but her approach remained uniquely her own. She moved through the dusty, decaying warehouse with an uncanny sense of purpose, her eyes discerning weaknesses and opportunities where others saw only ruin. With swift, decisive movements, she pointed out the weakened walls with startling precision, indicating where the existing structure was fighting itself. She didn't speak in complex engineering terms, but in an accessible, almost conversational language that somehow resonated. Her instructions, often delivered with quiet authority, guided the team to install sensors that would monitor the building's subtle movements and vibrations, transforming the static structure into a living data point. More crucially, she directed the implementation of innovative flexible joints, not rigid reinforcements, but adaptive components designed to allow sections of the building to shift and sway in harmony with external forces rather than resisting them. Under her direction, the old warehouse, once inert and brittle, began to transform. It was no longer just a collection of materials, it was a testament to a new philosophy. Slowly, subtly, the condemned warehouse began to move, to adapt, to breathe, responding to unseen currents in the air and imperceptible shifts in the ground, a silent, graceful dance orchestrated by Luciana's visionary touch. The most harrowing test came without warning. A sudden, violent gust of wind, an unexpected microburst, slammed into the already compromised structure. A terrifying groan ripped through the old timbers, and a massive crack snaked across the ceiling. Dust rained down, and a collective cry of alarm went up from the engineers, who instinctively recoiled, expecting the worst. The roof threatened to collapse, a final catastrophic failure that would not only destroy the warehouse, but also extinguish any remaining hope for the Phoenix Tower and Sterling innovations. Panic flared. But amidst the chaos, Luciana remained an astonishing beacon of calm. She didn't shout orders or retreat to safety. Instead, with an almost otherworldly serenity, she walked directly towards the most distressed section of the wall, moving with a deliberate, unhurried pace that defied the imminent danger. The air crackled with the sound of splintering wood and groaning metal, yet her focus remained unwavering. She reached the buckling wall, her hand, still bearing the faint marks of her cleaning gloves, extended with gentle resolve. She placed her palm firmly against the distressed surface, as if establishing a direct connection, not just with the material, but with something deeper, more elemental within the building itself. Her voice, though soft, carried an undeniable power, cutting through the creaking and groaning of the dying structure. "Don't be afraid," Luciana whispered, her voice a soothing balm against the building's tormented groans, her eyes closed for a brief moment as if listening intently to an unheard frequency. "We've come to listen to you." It was an absurd statement in any conventional engineering context, an act of empathy directed towards inanimate concrete and steel, yet in that moment it resonated with an undeniable truth. She wasn't commanding the building, she was communing with it, acknowledging its struggle, its fear. And then something extraordinary, something beyond scientific explanation, happened. The building, which moments before had seemed on the verge of total collapse, responded. The terrifying groans began to subside. The violent creaks lessened, and the ominous crack in the ceiling, which had been spreading ominously, seemed to halt its progression. The entire structure stabilized, as if acknowledging her plea, as if finding a new equilibrium from within. The team of engineers, who had braced for impact, watched in stunned silence, their faces a mixture of disbelief and profound shock. Their instruments, which had been screaming warnings, now registered a calming of the vibrations, a settling of the forces. They had witnessed something impossible, something that defied every principle they had ever learned. Luciana, the cleaner-turned-architect, had not just redesigned a building, she had communicated with it, proving that the heart of true innovation lay not just in calculations, but in a profound, almost mystical understanding of the structures themselves. The success at the condemned warehouse, a feat of engineering and intuition, reverberated through the upper echelons of Sterling innovations, leaving a potent mixture of awe and disbelief in its wake. The impossible had been made manifest, and all eyes now turned to the woman responsible. The high-stakes board meeting convened to address the fate of the Phoenix Tower, and the very solvency of the company began with an air of tense anticipation. The council members, a formidable assembly of financial titans, legal minds, and industry veterans, filled the opulent boardroom, their expressions a blend of skepticism and grudging curiosity. Then Luciana entered. She still wore her cleaning uniform, the familiar blue shirt, orange apron, and yellow gloves, a stark visual counterpoint to the tailored suits and designer attire surrounding the gleaming mahogany table. She carried no elaborate presentation, no complex data projections. Instead of dense charts and intricate schematics, her voice filled the room with an unexpected yet deeply resonant philosophy. She spoke not of stress loads or material tensile strengths, but of empathy. She talked about listening to structures as one would listen to a person, understanding their inherent stresses, their natural inclinations, their silent struggles. It was a language utterly foreign to the quantitative, results-driven world of corporate finance and engineering, yet it commanded a strange, undeniable attention, forcing the seasoned executives to re-evaluate their ingrained perceptions of design and construction. Her directness, coupled with the undeniable proof of the warehouse, held them captive. A hush fell over the room, an almost sacred silence as Luciana concluded her unconventional presentation. The council members, accustomed to analytical debates and cutthroat negotiations, seemed momentarily disarmed. It was then that Victoria Hartwell, the most powerful and influential investor present, a woman known for her shrewd business acumen and unyielding resolve, did the unthinkable. Her normally impassive face softened, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her features. She leaned forward, her gaze fixed on Luciana, and began to speak, her voice surprisingly gentle. "What Luciana describes," she started, the words measured, "the idea of structures having a voice, a will, it's not entirely new to me." A ripple of surprise spread through the room. Victoria Hartwell was an enigma, rarely revealing anything personal. "In my youth," she continued, a faint, almost wistful smile touching her lips, "I too had similar visions. Ideas of buildings that could move, that could breathe with the city." She revealed that she had sketched similar concepts, abstract notions of dynamic architecture that seemed to flow with the environment. But she had suppressed them, buried them deep within herself. "I hid them," she admitted, her voice tinged with regret. "Out of fear, out of convention. The world wasn't ready. I wasn't ready." The admission was stunning, an unexpected bridge between the disparate worlds of the powerful investor and the humble cleaner, revealing a shared, buried sensitivity that transcended their respective stations. Victoria Hartwell's confession hung in the air, a testament to the societal pressures that had silenced even the most visionary minds. Her vulnerability, rarely seen, seemed to crack open a space for a new kind of boldness. Her gaze, firm and resolute once more, swept across the council. "We have spent 18 months and countless millions trying to force this tower into a shape it refuses to take," she declared, her voice regaining its usual authoritative tone, but now imbued with a newfound conviction. "We have tried every conventional method, every established expert, and we have failed." She then turned her gaze directly to Robert Sterling, a silent challenge in her eyes before looking back at Luciana. "It's clear that true understanding lies outside our current framework." Then came the proposition, utterly unthinkable just hours before, yet now, in the wake of Luciana's improbable success and Victoria's revealing confession, it felt strangely inevitable, perhaps even revolutionary. "I propose that Luciana become the chief consultant for the Phoenix Tower project," Victoria announced, her words ringing with definitive authority. "She has demonstrated a unique, perhaps unparalleled understanding of this building's needs. We need her vision. We need her empathy." The magnitude of the proposal hung heavy in the air, a seismic shift in corporate power dynamics. It meant placing the fate of a billion-dollar project and the reputation of an entire corporation in the hands of someone who had previously held a mop. A profound silence took hold of the room. It wasn't a silence of confusion or disagreement, but one of collective processing, of deeply ingrained assumptions being shattered. The implications of Victoria Hartwell's proposal rippled through the council members, forcing each one to confront their own biases, their own definitions of expertise. The initial shock gave way to a dawning realization, a quiet acknowledgement of the undeniable truth that had unfolded before them. Luciana the cleaner had not only saved their most ambitious project from certain failure, but had also illuminated a path forward that none of them, despite their impressive credentials, had ever conceived. The weight of their own repeated failures, contrasted with Luciana's quiet brilliance, settled upon them. One by one, glances were exchanged, not of skepticism, but of reluctant acceptance, followed by dawning respect. The initial disbelief morphed into a unified understanding that this was not merely an unconventional choice, but the only choice. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, a nod, then another, spreading through the room like a wave. Finally, with a quiet, undeniable force, came the unanimous approval. The council, once skeptical and divided, now stood united behind the woman in the cleaning uniform. The fate of the Phoenix Tower and perhaps the future of architectural innovation had just been irrevocably altered, guided by the wisdom of the woman who listened to buildings. Months unfolded, transforming the corporate landscape of Sterling Innovations. The corner office, once a symbol of rigid hierarchy, now held a dynamic new energy. Luciana, no longer merely the cleaner, but the acclaimed chief consultant for the Phoenix Tower, worked in a transformed space. Where there had once been only cleaning supplies and the silent echoes of discarded ambition, now stood a vibrant hub of innovation. Her desk, once used for arranging rags and bottles, was now adorned with intricate architectural models, interactive digital panels, and stacks of blueprints, each one a testament to a philosophy that blended intuition with cutting-edge technology. The shift was more than just a change of scenery. It was a profound redefinition of purpose. Her days were now filled with intense consultations, design sessions and presentations, collaborating with the very engineers and architects who had once overlooked her. The rigid lines of corporate structure had blurred, replaced by a collaborative spirit forged in the crucible of unexpected success. This transformation wasn't limited to Luciana alone. Her teenage daughter, who had once felt a quiet embarrassment about her mother's cleaning uniform, now looked at her with unbridled admiration. The daughter's perspective had shifted dramatically, from a common laborer to a visionary. The shame had dissolved, replaced by a nascent pride. Fueled by her mother's extraordinary journey, the daughter now harbored her own ambitious dreams. She wanted to become an engineer, a bridge builder, a creator of structures that truly understood their environment, inspired by the woman who had made buildings dance. The influence of Luciana's revolutionary methodology soon extended far beyond the confines of sterling innovations and the city of Chicago. Her concept of structural empathy, of designing buildings that could flex and breathe with their surroundings, rapidly gained international recognition. What started as a daring experiment became a global standard, a paradigm shift in the field of modern architecture. Builders and urban planners across continents recognized the profound implications of her approach. Soon, the Luciana method, as it became known, was being adopted in groundbreaking projects around the world. New structures began to rise in diverse and challenging environments. Resilient high-rises in Japan, designed to sway gracefully with seismic activity, adaptive coastal homes in Florida, built to withstand the fierce whims of hurricanes, and innovative public spaces in Switzerland, capable of responding fluidly to shifting alpine conditions. Her insights provided solutions to challenges that had plagued conventional construction for decades, proving that true strength often lay in flexibility, not rigidity. Her philosophy transformed buildings from static monuments into dynamic, living entities attuned to the rhythms of the earth. The world was learning to dance with its structures thanks to Luciana's profound vision. The ultimate testament to Luciana's genius and the enduring power of her architectural philosophy came not from a board meeting or an engineering report, but from a real-world catastrophe. A powerful earthquake, registering a devastating magnitude, ripped through a densely populated region. Chaos ensued as buildings crumbled and infrastructure failed. However, amidst the widespread destruction, a single structure stood remarkably intact, a school constructed with Luciana's innovative concept. Unlike its conventionally built counterparts that surrounded it, the school didn't shatter. It swayed, it vibrated, it absorbed the Earth's violent tremors with an almost sentient resilience, precisely as Luciana had designed it to do. Its flexible joints and adaptive framework allowed it to move with the Earth, dissipating the destructive energy that brought other structures crashing down. As the dust settled and the desperate search for survivors began, rescue teams converged on the school. To the collective awe and immense relief of the entire region, the building had resisted without significant damage. More profoundly, it had saved hundreds of lives, children, teachers, and staff who had taken shelter within its adaptive walls. It was a monumental, undeniable validation of Luciana's work, a powerful demonstration that her empathetic approach to architecture was not just theoretical, but profoundly life-saving. And so, the story of the Phoenix Tower and the architectural revolution it sparked came full circle. It all began not with a celebrated architect, nor a high-flying CEO, but with a silent woman who moved through the gilded halls of power, almost invisible. Day after day, she had meticulously cleaned the very room where the most crucial decisions were made, witnessing the repeated frustrations, the misguided calculations, and the spiraling despair of those who sought to command concrete and steel without truly understanding its nature. She absorbed their failures, pondered their dilemmas, and in her quiet observation forged a new way of seeing. She was the background, the unnoticed presence, until the fateful day when the frustration reached its peak, and Robert Sterling, in a moment of desperate clarity, demanded the true architect. It was then that she dared to raise her hand, a simple, courageous gesture that shattered the invisible barrier between her world and theirs. And most importantly, she was heard. Her voice, once hushed by circumstance, became the catalyst for a transformation that not only rebuilt a tower, but redefined an industry, proving that true insight can emerge from the most unexpected places, if only one is willing to listen. For more stories that matter, join our community. Subscribe to Jabat Stories.